What's up, everybody? Welcome to Javien University. I'm your host, Javien Elliott, and today's guest on the show today, she was ranked as high as number 9 in the nation as a high school recruit. She had over 100 scholarship offers. She was a McDonald's All-American, played college basketball at the Florida State University, and also played professionally. She's a keynote speaker, athlete, and an entrepreneur, and also a mother. And today we have Morgan Jones. Thank you for coming. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here.
No problem.
I made it.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm glad you came. So we met at Florida State, and we honestly we didn't really know each other like that, but we crossed paths quite a few times. And like we was talking off the camera, it's like, who would have thought in a million years that we would be doing a podcast together? So, with that being said, let's take it back after all the things you did. You grew up here in Orlando, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so take us down your journey and towards going into basketball and life growing up in Orlando.
Yeah. No, life growing up in Orlando. Yeah, so I was from, obviously, we have Orlando, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have all the pockets outside of Orlando. So I am went to school in Lake Mary. So that's kind of like, when they announce you when you were in college and they're like, they're from, it was never Orlando. It was from Lake Mary, Florida. But yes, Orlando.
Okay.
But yeah, I grew up in a 2-parent home, biracial. My mother is Caucasian, my dad's African American. I have one sister who is 2.5 years older than me. Okay. And my parents are coaches. So if you can imagine, as a little girl, I was in the gym whether I wanted to be or not. I started off where I would go into the gym and I was not tall enough, I wasn't old enough, and so I was just there. And back then, it was safe to play hide and seek in the YMCA. You didn't have to worry about nobody taking you or nothing crazy, right? Like, you just were kids.
Yeah.
And so I would grab all the kids that were in the gym and we'd all get together in the corner and be like, all right, we're gonna play hide and seek. All right, you're on their team, you're on my team. And I remember doing that a lot before I was able to step on the court and play. The transition going on the court was literally just one day. They came over and they said, here's your jersey, here's the basketball, it's picture day. And I have this cute little picture of me when I was like 5 or 6, and I'm holding the basketball and I'm smiling, and I have the cute little flowers on the collar, totally not prepared. Now these kids got, arm sleeves, they're all ready. No. Jump in the picture, you're gonna play. And kind of the rest was history. It was I played co-ed a lot. Okay. When I was younger, so I've always played with boys. I've always played up, and I was around the culture, right? I was around the language around sport. When we're at the dining room table, when we're transitioning from dinner to bed or whatever, I hear my parents talking about it. I hear my sister talking about it, and so I was immersed in the culture at home and in the gym from a very young age.
Okay, so. You mentioned it really makes sense to me because you mentioned your parents were coaches, and, even before hearing that, when I see you, I think of a leader. I think of someone whose voice has some authority to it, right? Even just by watching your content. Did your parents have a lot to do with that, with you being a leader? Because even with you playing hide and seek in the YMCA, you're gathering kids and hey, I can just see you coordinated, so did that have
being strategic, right?
There we go. There we go.
Like, who's gonna lead this hide and seek?
Exactly.
Hey, I'm gonna pick you. You you can hide well, But no, that's exactly right. I think a lot of my leadership and my confidence certainly comes from my parents and what they showed and what they poured. From my dad, neither one of my parents went to college. They both just got high school diplomas. And so a big part of their intention and their effort and everything that they did for us was to get us to get a scholarship to higher education. Whatever that looked like, that was their goal. Yeah. And so my dad used to take my sister and I out on the courts. And this was back when you didn't have private trainers. There wasn't a bunch of gyms. Girls' teams weren't on every block. They weren't as accessible. And so if you wanted to play and you wanted to hoop, you go out with the guys. That's just what you do.
Yeah.
And so my dad used to take us out there, and he always picked us on his team, right? And the way in which, you know, I think back on it now, but it's like him choosing my sister and I amongst all of these men. And when we're out there, him telling us, shoot that, shoot that.
Yeah.
You know, they can't guard you. Like speaking into us in a way where, as young women, you know, a lot of men sometimes think you can't really talk to girls like that. You know, you got to be gentle. You got to be soft. No, my dad's like, go out there and be a dog.
Yeah.
Shoot that.
I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that's the internal dialogue that I started to create at a young age from my dad, which, as you can imagine, a young girl and her dad, that relationship is so powerful, you know? So that's where I got it from my dad on the court. And then my mom, man, I was able to watch her and witness my mom. Being Caucasian, obviously she moves throughout the world a little bit differently, so I was able to watch that. But also, my mom was a go-getter. My mom walks into any room and she will captivate the entire room in seconds. That led her to having a hustle. She had 2 daughters that she had to figure out, you know, like, what can we build? Because I don't have a degree. I don't have you know, I can't go and just push my resume across the table and say, give me a job, because you needed a college degree. And so her and my dad had to figure it out. And so my mom started her own marketing business. And she started from the ground. She was knocking on doors, selling direct marketing. And from there, she grew it all the way to selling it for $2.5 million when I was in high school.
Wow.
So I witnessed that grind. I witnessed the late nights of my mom. I witnessed her coming to the gym with a suit on and going in the bathroom, coming out with the tennis shoes and the shorts and grabbing her whistle and saying, let's go. You know, that was what I grew up in.
No, that, man, everything is making so much sense because, you know, just to come, like, I know, you know, for the people watching, I'm referencing conversations off the screen, off the camera, but, you know, I was telling her that, you know, I like to watch people and I can tell that she is strategic in her marketing and everything. And like, that makes so much sense knowing that you had that upbringing and was able to see someone who was successful in doing that. So that makes a lot of sense. So when we're talking about you transitioning to basketball and it started with taking a picture, like just here, what was it like when you first started going into like the competitive high school basketball or playing around, you played around other men, and that brought out that toughness, that dog in you. But how was it when it translated to actually playing organized versus other women or girls?
Yeah. So I remember always having to play up. And in middle school, I was not good. I sat the bench a lot. I was tall, I was awkward, but like everyone else, like developmentally, was at a different stage. I don't know, their bodies just catched up quicker, their hormones, whatever you want to call it. I remember like I was the person on the bench. And I was a liability going into the game. Wow. And so, you know, again, being around the game, playing with older girls, I wasn't always the tallest one at the time when I was playing up. So I was highly encouraged to handle the ball. And I had to have the ball in my hand a lot. And so I played the point guard, you know, the wing. And what that allowed me to do is develop the skills of being able to handle the ball and being able to see the floor. So the taller I got and the way I was able to handle the rock really translated well as my other peers started to catch up, and now I'm playing on my level. So now I'm like a 6-foot guard out there playing that can shoot NBA threes and can see the floor like anyone else, you know? And I think that was a big shift in the time too, where there wasn't a lot of tall girls playing the guard position. I think I'm still one of the tallest guards that's ever played in the ACC with my height and my stats. So kind of like the turning point was like my height, right? Committing to the process. But I remember going into my freshman year and I had started to pick up a little bit of momentum because they're like, who is this girl? She's young, she's tall, she can handle it, she can see it, and she can shoot it. We got to watch her. And so going into my freshman year, I was ranked top 30 in the country. And that was like, man, this is awesome. This is great. And I started to see my potential. You know, like we all have human potential inside of us. And that's what we're really all here to do, is just see how many layers we can pull back to get to that potential. And so I started to see it. And I was like, man, if I'm here now, where could I be when I finish? So I started flirting with that vision a little bit and like kind of thinking about what do I want to commit to or what do I want to put down on paper to be able to say like, this is where I want to be by the time I'm done with Morgan Jones in high school. And my parents had this tradition that we did December 31st of every year. We would get around the big wood brown table in our kitchen, and it would be my sister, me, my mom, and my dad. And my mom would pull out blank white sheets of paper and a pen, and she put it in the middle of the table, and she'd say, write your goals down. Everyone write your goals down. Man, really, Mom? Like, is this really work? So she'd pull out the year before. She'd say, look, here go the goals. You know, it's all crinkled up. She'd lay that thing out. We wrote them last year. How did we do? And we'd be like, dang, we actually did that. Like, that's good, you know? So I remember them when I was kind of hitting that momentum streak of, all right, I've got some pretty strong potential, where I wrote down, you know, I want to be a top 10 player in the country. I didn't know what that would take. I didn't know how I would get there. All I knew is like, that is a goal I want to set for myself, and I'm willing to put the work in and set the attention around getting there. Yeah. If I fall short, okay, but listen, it's on paper. Right. Now I got to hold myself accountable to that's the North Star. That's the goal. And so I started to just commit to the process, and I started getting invited places to the Nike skills camps, to different teams were trying to pull me off my team. You know, they start pulling you different places, you know, because they think you're good, whatever. They started doing that. And then by the time I was a junior, I was ranked number 9th in the country. And so I had just barely hit my goal, my top 10 goal. And so with that came USA Olympian, McDonald's All-American, which is one of the prestigious awards you can get as a basketball athlete. Yeah. I was awarded 100 plus Division I scholarships. And so from there, it was all wide open for me. Yeah.
So when exactly did you get your first scholarship, and from what school was it?
Yeah, I think my first like offer, I want to say, was from University of Central Florida, as they should.
Right here, like I'm 20 minutes away. Like, don't even play with me, like.
Yep. From Coach Ronald Huey.
Okay. So like, how was that? How was your feeling? Like, I know you went from, you know, writing all your visions down and all of that stuff, but like, what was going through your head once you got your first scholarship?
Oh man, that first offer was, I would love to say it was like, oh man, like I'm so great. When you're just in it, you're in it, you know, and it just comes like, it's like a random Tuesday you come home and you're like, oh, such and such just called and said they want to offer you. And you're like, what, for real? Yeah. And, you know, it was kind of just like these guiding affirmations, if you will, right? These guiding mileposts, if you will, of saying, okay, all right, I might be kind of good, you know, and you kind of just keep following them. It wasn't like it is now, where as soon as you get an offer, you jump over to Instagram and you make your little graphic on Canva and you're telling all your friends. You ain't had nobody to tell but mom and pops. Yeah. And maybe grandma, who was excited, right?
Right. Yeah, no, for real. Like, I mean, obviously, not to make it about me, but I don't know, but because I didn't get offered in high school, but like just to kind of get a feeling of your thought process on things. So it was just like, okay, like, let's go get another one. Yeah. But once you started getting into that 50, 75, 100 plus range, did you still have that same mindset, or you had at some point you had to start like?
No, at some point you just start thinking different. You like, well, what do I really want out of college? You know what I'm saying? What colors do I really want to wear? Right. You know, back then it was like, oh, who does have the cutest guys team? You know, because you're just like a young girl that's like, oh, I want to go to college.
No, it's actually funny hearing that from a woman's perspective, because I didn't think like that. Like, you know, as a football player, you're not thinking who got the prettiest cheerleaders. It's like, so that's funny you said that. So,
I mean, truly, you just start going through regular 15, 16-year-old like decisions, you know, and you're like, all right. And so when I started getting all those offers, I did have to start thinking about it a lot more of like, what do I want? You know, how important is it to be close to home? Do I want to go far away? You know, do I want to be coached by a woman or a male? Is there really a difference? You know, how important is the culture and the atmosphere and the tradition of the school, and how important is education. You know, what is their alumni base like? All of those things you just start to consider. And, you know, I got some advice along the way, but I will say, like, there wasn't too many people around me that could advise me on, like, how to choose the right school for the longer game.
Yeah.
And partly that's because, like, when I was coming up in 2011, 12, I think is when I graduated, like, there wasn't really a super lucrative long game for women. So it was like, okay, you would go, at that time, you go to the WNBA, you know, their starting salary was like $40K, you know, max is like, you know, maybe 150, 200, right? For the top players, the low players, 40K. So it wasn't like it was a big lucrative decision, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where I know on the male side, it's a little different. There is a lot of more money legacy kind of thought process that can go into that decision. So yeah, it was based on that of, you know, education, location, coaches, team, and then, you know, dynamic, right? For me, I will say I was a very versatile player, so I could play a lot of positions. And I was kind of told the same thing at every school. Every school kind of started sounding the same. You know, you're going to come in, you're going to be the cornerstone player.
Yeah.
You're going to be the best thing that will put you on billboards and buses. You're going to, you know, feeding me just everything, like the silver spoon, the silver platter. And it started all sounding the same.
Yeah.
And so it was a hard decision to make.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine. Just out of curiosity, you mentioned like a difference of being coached by a man or a woman. Like, what are some of the things that go through your mind when you're trying to make that decision? Like, what are some of the main differences that you think about?
Yeah, I think that when I was playing, there was certainly a lot more cultural, societal, like, significance between a woman's leadership and a man's leadership, where, you know, women are seen, right, like more nurturing, more, maybe a little bit more like emotionally attuned. There's a way that they do it, and then there's a way that a male does it. And so, like, do you like more direct feedback? Do you like more bottom line feedback, right? Where a woman's more, how do you feel? What do you think? It really comes out to be kind of false. In a sense, it's really not about the gender.
Yeah.
It's truly about, like, the coach, the personality, and then how do you receive feedback?
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of how do you want to be led towards your next level goals?
Okay. So when you were getting fed all the same things from different teams and stuff, where did you originally commit to and why?
I went to 5, so you could take 5 official visits, so I had to narrow it down to 5. I always knew I wanted to play for a school or at a school where I could take them from being kind of like in the middle or at the lower part of the conference to taking them to the top part of the conference, like really growing a program.
Yeah.
I didn't have much interest in, like, the UConns, the Tennessees, like schools that were established. I'm like, well, I'll just go there and be another number. I've always been about the underdog. So I'm like, I want to go somewhere and really, like, help a program grow. So the 5 schools that I went to initially were, you might laugh, you're like, oh, they needed to grow, but they weren't in the top. So it was Michigan, Missouri, Marquette, Northwestern, and Cal Berkeley, California Berkeley.
But when it comes to basketball, those aren't really basketball.
They're all in great conferences, but they're not staple basketball schools.
Yeah, because I know in football, it's like, sound like good schools to me, but like,
it is.
But in y'all world, you probably like, you went where? Girl.
Right, Michigan just won the championship. It's like, oh, you went to Michigan. Oh, okay.
Right. So which team did you end up committing to or going to signing with?
I ended up signing with. I really wanted to go to California Berkeley. I really wanted to go there. Like, that was it. When I left there, I'm like, this is it. And my sister at the time, she was playing at Northwestern University, so she was a really good basketball player as well. And my parents love this concept of their daughters playing together, and then Northwestern's like the Harvard of the Big Ten. I mean, it's super prestigious academically.
Yeah.
So my parents, going back to this part of like them wanting to be heavily, like their goal was higher education. They're like, get the best education. That's what it matters for women, you know? And so, you know, with a lot of thought and a lot of, you know, they kind of led me that way, and I kind of psyched myself out that I wanted to go there. And so I chose Northwestern University initially. When I went there, it was great. It was good. No, let me like not lie. It was okay. I'll say that, right? It wasn't great. That's totally like a surface level answer. It was okay because it wasn't going to help me grow. I went immediately in the Big Ten. I was playing 38 minutes a game. You know, I was taking all the shots. No one could hold me accountable because I was kind of like the best player, and they never wanted to lose me, so they were never going to really coach me up. You know, it was great to play with my sister. We had our year and everything, but like at the end of the season, I was just like, this really ain't it. And, you know, the culture of Northwestern was so academic focused that I never felt like I was really enriched in that tradition, that athletic excellence.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I remember going to the dining hall one time, and, you know, we had a football game. We were playing Michigan, you know, the football players, and one of the students was like, "Oh, there's a football team here?" And
Oh,
like,
nah.
Sorry for anyone that's
I'm
watching.
in the transfer
that's
portal right now. Like,
where am I? Right. I only like pour everything into the school every day. So that was kind of like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that was where I was like, all right, this really ain't it. Something else has got to be around the corner.
So it's crazy how like you like when you were coming out of school and you wanted to take this program and make it like one of the better programs, like it's funny how like you don't necessarily think about, okay, if I'm going to come here and be the guy or if I'm going to be that person, like a lot of times you get a lot of leeway being that person, so you don't really think about that. So it's like maybe had you went to you had the opportunity to go to a better school, you would have maybe been able to grow as an athlete more. But you mentioned, I think you mentioned, I already know this, but you went there with your sister, right? How was that being there with her though?
Oh man, it was awesome. You know, I think I grew up with my sister, so like we always were kind of close. And, you know, her and I have really like a unique bond in the sense we find these life moments together. I mean, we now have kids that are 30 days apart. Like we have the same age kids. Yeah. So playing with her was awesome. I mean, it's one of those things that it's very rare. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to do that. And there were moments when, you know, I was there where they, you know, some of my teammates or people would kind of gang up on me a little bit because I was so like, you know, Miss Prima Donna, if you will. And she stepped in and stood up for me in ways where I'm like, this feels really good. Like to have somebody that really has my back here and is advocating on like who I am and like what I'm about. And also like, y'all ain't finna mess with my sister. Like that's what's not finna happen.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the energy she brought as my older sister. Like y'all got the wrong one.
Right.
You know? So it was a really unique experience. And I mean, my parents loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of your parents, is it true that your family moved up there to Chicago in the area with y'all?
Yeah.
When y'all were both, because that's where Northwestern is, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Like, how was that?
Yeah. So they, my mom's originally from like right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And when I was in the 8th grade, my parents moved us to Chicago for 1 year. And I did middle school in the inner city of Chicago, like fully immersed in the culture.
What?
Trains, you know, the slang, all of that. I mean, it was the most transformational year of my life, eye-opening, in a good way, in a great way.
Okay.
And my sister also. So we kind of knew Chicago. So when the opportunity came for them to move back, it was so easy. They packed up that U-Haul so quick. They found their little rental, little townhouse right up the street.
Yeah.
And it was cool because like there would be, you know, we'd have an off day and they would cook, and then we'd have like some of the athletes over and we'd play cards, and just to know that your family's in proximity to you, I think there certainly is a lot of security in that. that you need. You don't need it, but it's nice to have it, I should say. To have that when, you just need that home cooked meal, or you need to just sit in the presence of someone who really knows you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely important because, a lot of times you in Florida and you go off to, somewhere far, your parents, they like, oh, my baby, they leaving me. Like, it's like, so that sometimes can be tough.
Yeah.
So, people probably like, well, if you went to Northwestern, how did you end up at Florida State? Like, so fill us in on how you ended up going to Florida State.
Yeah. Well, after the season at Northwestern, I had to have that difficult conversation with the coach of, kind of going to him and just saying, I think there's another path for me. This really isn't it. And then he had to release me, which I think is new these days, right? With students, athletes being able to just get into the transfer portal, and it's more of a button and not a conversation.
Yeah.
So I had to have the conversation, and that was a growing conversation. And then once they released me, then I was able to open up my recruiting again. And so at that point, I visited LSU, Kentucky, and Florida State.
Okay.
And then if we go back to the beginning story, the first coach that offered me was UCF Ronald Huey. He was the assistant at Florida State when I was transitioning from Northwestern.
Wow.
So I had that connection with him, that relationship with him, and wanted to be back home and loved the coaching staff, Coach Sue Semerau and Coach Brooke Wyckoff. And so that felt like home, and then I committed to going there.
Yeah. So that was really like a full circle moment.
Yeah.
So one thing that I came across is that you actually got a chance to play in Africa and Italy while you were at Florida State.
Yeah.
So how was that? Like, what was your experience like being able to play in different countries, like while you're in college? And, cause everybody don't get that opportunity.
I know. I was such a brat. And I just think back, just the things that we were able to experience playing at that level. And, I look back and I have an immense amount of gratitude for all the coaches and the programs and the ACC and everyone that made that happen, and it's unfortunate sometimes when you're in it, you can't always see how beautiful and how unique the experience is. But, going over to Africa and playing there I still haven't had an experience like that, Still have never gone and been immersed in a culture like that to the point where, you can literally see in their eyes and their hands and of how much they don't have, but do have.
I
mean?
kind of get expound a little bit, but I definitely kind of get it.
Yeah. So we played their national team. Basically, we played a bunch of grown women. I mean, these women, they just got off a 10-hour shift. They got the baby in the stand. They put their jersey on, and they put it on us. I'm talking about these girls could hoop, okay? They were so strong and powerful and disciplined. They tore us up. So, but we, during our off time, we got to kind of explore, right? And so we went on a safari, and we were in the car on the way to the safari, and we're on this bus. And you have two people from there that speak their language, know the wayabouts, if you will. And it was a really long ride. And we get to this one long street where there's nothing anywhere, but as you can imagine, it's like a desert, right? Just a bunch of dust and little shack homes. And for miles, no grocery store, no water, no toilets, you didn't see anything.
You're just out there.
Yeah. And we started driving up on a village. And it was about 15 different little homes. And we were like, can we pull over? And can we give them these basketballs that we have? We had a bunch of basketballs. And my coach is like, yeah, let's do it. And the guy's like, okay, all right. We're with him, so it's fine. So we pull over, we all jump out, and they all just start running over to us. And they're just looking up at us like we are the best thing since we are everything.
Yeah.
And, we handed them the basketball, and you could hear the translator telling the village, these basketballs are not for you, they're for the kids. These are not for you, they're for the kids. He was very serious about that because what they'll do is the parents, older people, they'll take the basketball and they'll go sell it,
yeah.
right? Goods exchange and services.
Yeah.
And so we just like handed them this basketball and their whole face like just lit up.
Wow.
They have no idea really how to use it, but they know like this is a gift. You know, this is something that we can utilize and we can play with, right?
Yeah.
And it was the best thing you could tell, you know, in their eyes that they've gotten in a really, really long time.
Dang, like sometimes, man, we just don't know how good you got it.
Yeah.
Really, like, so being able to see that. So like when it comes to like playing at Florida State, were you running into some of the same issues that you had at Northwestern, or like how was your experience actually on the Florida State team?
Yeah, it was really challenging in good ways. When I went in there, we had six, maybe seven healthy active players, and so in basketball, you need 5 to play, right? And then the bench, at least you need 3 deep, at least, you know.
Yeah.
So we had 7 players that we had to play an ACC season with.
Wow.
You know, a lot of minutes. I played with Natasha Howard, who's in the WNBA right now. She's
Okay.
she's WNBA like Defensive Player of the Year. She's doing incredible. So we came in, and when I came in, we were okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were decent. We were like at the middle of the ACC, and year after year, like the recruits got better, and you know, by the time I left there, we were, you know, top 5 in the country. We lost to South Carolina to go to the Final Four, made it to the NCAA Elite 8. I mean, you know, playing at that level was truly like a remarkable experience, because I think a lot of the times, like, and you know this, so I'm totally going to flip this back on you, but I know you're asking me questions, so I'm going to let you keep asking questions. But anyways, you know this, being a part of an elite culture, like, you don't just wake up and win. You don't just wake up and like all of a sudden, you know what I mean? You just sitting here with like all this excellence surrounded you and everyone just knows how to work cohesively and together and whatever. There are so many moments of adversity that happen outside of those lights that you have to work through, that your coaches have to continue to reiterate. They have to model it. Like, there is so much that goes into being excellent, like you and I got to experience at Florida State.
Yep.
You know?
1,000%. So like one thing that we used to hear from Coach Fisher, or Jimbo Fisher, one thing that he used to always say is that you make the helmet and the helmet don't make you. So like what that means is just like, just because you put on that helmet that has the spear on the side, that don't mean you just gonna wake up and win, like you just said. That don't mean that, you know, you're gonna go out there and demand greatness. You know, you make the helmet. What's the standard? Y'all make the standard. You know, we coming in here demanding excellence every day, but just because you commit here and put a helmet on, that don't mean you're just gonna win. Like, it's a formula to success. You know, so you know, that's one of the things that really stood out to me, that when I got to Florida State.
How did you adjust to that?
I adjust to it really well because I didn't play football for 3 years after high school. And I went to a small school. I'm from a small town. So when all of a sudden I go from not playing football to sitting in a room full of future first round picks and Heisman winners and team that just won a national championship, I literally felt my mind like warping, like my mind completely changing because of how they address things mentally. Like, I had never heard someone talk about greatness like they were talking about greatness. Like, I had no one talking about, you know, optimizing your potential. You know, like, just like I said, they just won a national championship. So when I'm sitting in these meetings, like, to this day, I wish I wrote down everything that I heard in those meetings. I still remember a lot, but it's like, that's how I was able to adjust, because like, going from not hearing those type of messages to sitting into like a motivational speech. Like, we used to have guests come in all the time, like every day during training camp around like 9 p.m. we would have like a guest speaker come in. You know, so many different motivational speakers. The guy from Lone Survivor, I don't know if you ever watched that movie. I forgot his name, but he was in a situation where he was in the military, maybe the Navy, and this was like in Afghanistan or something. Like, so they were over there, and it was like 4 of his guys, and they end up going up this trail or something, and they ended up getting ambushed. It's just them 4, and they ended up getting ambushed by the enemies, and all of his friends. It's a movie. This is a movie.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, Lone Survivor. No. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
He came, the only one that survived came and talked to us.
Wow.
It was so many people, like so many people came by, like Eric Thomas, like so it was just like hearing these stories, it's like just bit that transformation, you know? Like, so if you're a recruit out there, it's Florida State where you want to be at, for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, and I love what you said there too, because I know like some of your audience are young athletes or parents or what have you, but like when you get that opportunity to be in the room, like write it down. Be fully present in it.
Be fully present.
You know?
Exactly. Document.
Yeah.
Because we, you know, that's the most important thing. So when you're playing at Florida State, you know, y'all go to the Elite 8 and you end up being able to get a chance to go and play professionally. What was your transition like, and where did you end up going to play?
When I transitioned from Florida, like going into pro? So going into pro, so when I was at Florida State, my last couple years, it was challenging in a sense that there was a lot of things that the culture and the style of play started changing. So as that started changing, I started getting moved out. I did. And so it happened so subtly though. It was like, okay, we started bringing in quicker players. When I first went in there, we were playing zone. All of a sudden, by my 3rd year, we got these quick guards coming in. They could go. You know, they playing full court. I'm a 6-foot guard. I'm not D'ing you up full court.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Slow pace.
So it was like, that ain't gonna work. So I kind of like slowly started dropping off in terms of like playing time and like being in it. And I was really frustrated because I don't think I couldn't fully see what was happening, and then how, you know, ultimately, you know, the head coach's job is to win games.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, she thought the other 5 or the people that she could put out there could help her to win games. And while in my, you know, 20-year-old, 21-year-old mindset and spirit, it was offensive.
Yep.
You know, I'm like, well, you ain't gonna play me, you ain't gonna sit me. I'm just gonna go somewhere else. You know who I am? So I did. I left, and I was gonna go play my 5th year at Oregon. I went out to Oregon. I didn't play there. I went out for a visit, and I went and saw it, and I was like so overwhelmed about the possibility of starting at a new school and like all the same kind of messages. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go and play pro at this point. Like, I'm gonna go see, because as a young girl, when I started to become good, that was kind of like the little bird on my shoulder. You know, you can go be a pro. You can go be a pro. You can go be a pro. And like, that's kind of what I realized I was chasing, was like, whatever that feeling and that achievement and that milestone was, like, that was the pinnacle. So once I got kind of over the whole college like dynamic, I was like, let me just go and see what all this is about. And so then I got an agent, and he put me in Puerto Rico, which was awesome.
Okay.
It was awesome because it was close to home. And Puerto Rico is beautiful, and it's awesome. And it's a really competitive league.
Okay.
You know, it was really nice to start getting paid for the thing that you've done for so long for free.
Yeah, no, for sure. So just in general, like, you know, what was it like living in Puerto Rico? Like, I know it's beautiful, but...
Yeah. Oh, man. My first city was Morovis. And it was like literally in the center of the island. So it wasn't really surrounded by water. It was very much like the locals. So nobody spoke English, you know, grocery stores, everything was in Spanish for the most part. And we lived in a little city where you like walk down the street, and to go into our house, I guess you could say it was. It's kind of just like it don't look like this, but you open the doors like you're going into, you know, like a CVS or something, right? You open up these 2 doors and you like walk down in 3 steps, and there's like the big living room, the kitchen, and then there was 3 bedrooms. So I roomed with the other American athlete, and then I also roomed with one of the Puerto Rican players, and we had 1 bathroom, no hot water. And I had no windows.
No windows?
No windows. I showed up, there was no bed, there was no nothing. It was
like a basement?
Basically, yeah, that's a good way to describe it. It was like literally a basement.
That don't sound too bad then.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad but what I did realize is I completely lost track of time.
Sound like prison.
Are you guys catching where I'm going here? Like,
wait a minute, we going from a basement to losing track of time? Nah. Look, blink twice if they put you in. I know you can't say it, but if
it's like, oh my gosh. Literally, I would lose track of time.
now, because you was in such a unique living situation, did that affect your playing? Because you on the court like, I don't even know what time it is. I'm not gonna guard nobody full court.
Oh my gosh. It did, because it was like we had 1 practice a day, and it was at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
So how you know when to be at practice?
You did. You literally got, I
You see the buses come by, hey, it's about 6:50, y'all come.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yep.
My bad, go ahead.
It was like that. It was like that though. So we wait around all day for that practice. We go to practice for about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And we would get back to the place right after practice. They always had sangria. So that was really new to me. Or I'm like, we just got done like running sprints, playing, 2-hour practice, and we're all now taking
Grab a sangria like it's Gatorade.
Like it's literally Gatorade. And but then I would go back and I would, because after you get done playing, you got your adrenaline, your blood's moving and stuff like that. So I used to stay up all night. I used to stay up till like 5 o'clock in the morning and go to bed and sleep all day. Get up and do it again. Like, yeah.
Sound like you was really living the life over there.
Like low key, it was like wasn't that bad compared to like what we're doing now,
Right.
All this adulting stuff, but yeah.
That's funny.
That was what it was like.
So on the basketball side of things, how did that go? Like, what was your experience like? Like, how long did you play over there? Like,
yeah, the experience was it was great, but this is where I think it really started to get to the point of like, okay, this chapter might be closing for me, because there's only 2 Americans allowed on each team, and so if you're the chosen American, if you will. You're the top of the top. Yeah. Okay, you're expected to come there, play all the minutes, and score all the baskets. Like you put the ball in the basket, that's your job. You're from America.
Yeah.
So, the first 10 games or so, leading scorer, right? Everything's great, hitting game-winning shots, the whole 9 yards. And then there was like 2 or 3 games where I was on the streak of just like really not showing up in the stat sheet, really not performing how I could. And I was real like, here, you shoot it. No, you shoot it. I was passing that rock because I was kind of over it. I'm just,
but you're the American though.
You can't do that.
You got to perform. You got to produce.
Can't do that.
Yeah. So I kind of know a little bit of that feeling because recently I played in the CFL in Canada. Okay. And it's actually similar to that up there. Like it has to be a certain amount of Canadians that start on the field. Yep. And there has to be a certain, like if you're like with some Americans, like if you're not a starter, you're like a designated, we call it a designated like impact player. Yeah. Like on special teams. So like that person may not be a starter, but if you're going to be a DI, you have to be a headhunter. There is no, you have to make an impact. And if you're not that person, we're going to find another American. Yeah. So is that something that kind of happened with you?
Yep. The moment I like stopped doing that, They found little reasons to point me out. It was really petty, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. But in terms of like performance-wise, I can remember being in the locker room, and you guys have seen Love and Basketball, right? So you remember the scene where you have Monica, she's like down tying her shoe, and then the coach is up there like yapping, and then after they break it down, she comes over and tells her like what was said.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the whole scenario that was going down. And after the coach got done, because all I could understand was like, Morgan, Morgan. And I'm sorry for anyone that's Spanish that's watching this and is like, wow, is that your Spanish voice? Yes, that's my Spanish voice. All I could hear was Morgan. And I knew he was talking about me. So once he was done, he walked over. I mean, one of my teammates walked over and like kneeled down and said, he just said like, if you don't score the ball, you're going home. Yeah.
Wow.
And so that was like that very like sobering moment of, wow, I'm only as good as what I do in the stat sheet and how I show up on that court.
Yeah.
'Cause they will literally send me home tomorrow like I ain't just hit 4 game winners and, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like at that point, you like you said, you realized that it's pretty much about to be a wrap. Like, how does that play on your mental health? Like, what was going through your head?
So what's interesting is like, it was unique in the sense of how the transition started to happen, because I had already been selected to compete in the All-Star game, which was happened right in that transition of like, they cut me, but then the All-Star game was happening. So I had to play in it, but I was basically like a free agent in the All-Star game, right? So the whole league, we play in this All-Star game, and you know, I'm like, oh, y'all cut me? Bet. Wow. Shot every shot, went for 30 on them. Just, I ain't passed the ball. I'm out there getting buckets. Right? I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna go out strong. Like, we're gonna go out on my terms.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting MVP of the All-Star game, right? So they give me my trophy, and I'm standing in the middle of the court. You know, my coach that just cut me sitting over there in the bleachers. You know, I'm sitting in the middle smiling, and got the 2 owners, you know what I'm saying, of the whole league on my left and my right.
Yeah.
While I'm smiling at the guy that just cut me, you know, and it was a really good feeling to be able to have like that victory over something that, you know, I've never been cut. Right? So I didn't know that feeling besides, they gonna cut you? It's like a breakup. They gonna break up with you? Oh, they think they can do that to you? Bad. Let me put my outfit on. Let me go out here and step out. It was kind of like that. You know what I'm saying?
All on Instagram, like, hey, showing up. You
right?
ain't never posted like this. You ain't never.
You know how
now
it goes.
No.
You know a girl going through a breakup and she get all, you know what I'm saying? It was one of those situations. So another team was there. They ended up actually seeing me play and was like, oh, we want to pick you up for another week contract. And I really, really struggled with that decision of whether to take it or not, because I knew this was the step. Like, I was in that point of like, at this moment right now, I'm choosing how I go out. I had that awareness of like, my story is being told, and I'm choosing how to exit basketball right now.
And you chose to exit after that?
I didn't. So I remember literally I was sitting outside of one of those, like one of these huts where like the steak where we eat and stuff like that. And I was on the phone with my parents, and I'm like, they gave me one more contract. This is how much it's worth. And I'm thinking about taking it. But here's the thing. The only way I'm going to take it is that if you and Taylor, which is my sister, I'm like, if you two hop on a flight, y'all come to Puerto Rico, we're going to stay over there in the Hilton right on the beach, and we're going to have us a good time this last little week, and we're going to take this money, and we're just going to have a ball, and I'll play my little 2 games, my practices, but this is how we're going to go out. I'm like, bet. They packed their bags. They was on their way to Puerto Rico, and we had such a great time in that last contract week, you know, and I took care of them, and that felt really good to be able to kind of like celebrate with them in a sense of like the closing, the exit, like, you know, this is we're wrapping this up, and to be able to like honor them in the ways in which they helped me on my journey and everything, it felt really good. So
you said it was a week contract.
Yep.
So after that week, like you were like, I'm done playing?
Yeah, that was it.
Wow.
I didn't tell them that. They didn't know that,
but
right?
But in your head, you knew that. So like, it's crazy because, you know, a lot of people don't get a chance to really end their playing career on their terms, whether it's due to injuries, whether it's due to getting cut. You know, it's a lot of reasons out there. So now and then another thing is, one of the main reasons that I wanted to talk with you on this podcast is, what was your transition like once you finished playing? Did you ever, like, what was your transition like in terms of building a new identity?
Oh man. So first of all, I didn't know how narrow my identity was until I was done. That was challenging. You kind of, as you heard my story, you walk out and you're like, okay, I'm done with this chapter. I'm gonna start to explore and get curious about what could be next. And you go on this kind of roller coaster ride of, it's exciting at first. It's like, man, I'm done with that. I don't have to do practice no more. I ain't gotta do this. I don't gotta do that. I'm gonna do that. Man, this is great. This is awesome, man. I'm gonna be out, doing whatever I want to do, right?
Yeah.
And you just kind of roll up there and you're on top of the world. Everybody's like, oh man, what you doing? Man, you back. Oh, that's great. And then the dust starts to settle.
Reality sits.
And then reality starts to sit in of, what I like to say is like you go through almost a grieving process. It's very similar to losing somebody or being reborn or what have you. Is like you start to realize, okay, that support system is no longer there. That routine is no longer there. If it's financial, right, that's dropped off. Now, everywhere you go, you're asked the question, well, what are you doing now? Now you feel that pressure of like having to have an answer. And I just stopped something I've been doing for 20 years. Can you give me a minute? Oh, no, you can't? Okay. So just kind of, then you start to you have to be very careful of the narratives. For me, like the narrative started to trickle in, like, you better get up and figure out what you gonna do.
Nah, for real.
You better get going, and I didn't have the tools to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to, who Morgan was underneath the identity, underneath the jersey, underneath the performance, underneath the lights.
Yeah.
When I had to sit with myself and ask those difficult questions, they were really hard to answer.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean, because I'm still playing, but I went through phases where I was without playing. The 3 years after high school without playing. I played 4 years in the league, and then I went 2 years without playing. And that time it was just like, exactly like what you said. People are coming up to you like, damn, bro, you still playing? Like, what you doing? Like, what? And it's like, you don't know. It's like, well, you kind of knew, but it's like, sometimes it's like, damn, people really only know you for one thing. And that, man, it's like, it makes you uncomfortable. It makes you uncomfortable. And for me, it kind of took me down a path of going ghost. Like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to post because people going to be like, why you posting? Like, what? Like, you ain't, like, I didn't want to go to my hometown, because when I'm at the Walmart or when it's like, you bombarded with these questions. For me, like, I didn't even want to have a camp or do something for the community back home, because it's like, I'm not even playing no more. I'm not even myself right now. Like, y'all know me. That's my identity.
Yeah.
So what did you do to help regain your identity once you recognized it? Because at first you got to recognize it.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, I didn't. I mean, it was, for me, it was unique in the sense of everyone's story is unique on their transition. That's for one. So no one's is the same, but there are similar themes that happen in all the athlete transitions. And so for me, I had quickly gone from the athlete identity to the mother identity. I think when I finished basketball, within a year, my son was on the way.
wow.
And I think that that was a time when I'm like, okay, whoa, hold on. I'm about to pick up a whole nother lifelong identity, right?
Yeah.
That if I don't get really rooted in something substantial, right? Something bigger than myself, something that can, catapult me into the next vision for my motherhood, my professionalism, what have you. For me, it was like I would become like another statistic. That's like the narrative that I told myself of like when you hear about athletes that fall off, right? Washed up, they fall off, they don't know, they become, they start working at their local CVS or whatever, and it's just a total downward spiral. Or for women, it's like, oh, she got a baby, she can't do nothing, that's what she's doing. That's all she does is be a mother. And like some of those things just started to like really drive me to go deeper. And so in those 9 months was like super difficult, but also like the most transformative months of my life because I was shut down. I was out of commission. Like I didn't announce my pregnancy. I didn't, I wasn't out there with it. Like I took it total isolation, solo, like deep with God. Like I had to go back to be able to go forward again because I had lost like my foundation of who I was. Like I didn't know. God was just this thing that, you did to look like you were a good person.
Wow.
You showed up on Sundays, you prayed over the meal, but never knew I ever had a relationship. So I was in such a space of like desperation that it got me to the point where it's like, okay, let's really go see what this thing's about.
Yeah.
And that's when I went back and really started to create more of a foundation and relationship with the divine, with God. So that really started helping me, but from a spiritual standpoint, that helped me. Now, from like a practical standpoint, it was getting back to the root. So me as an athlete, I like to say like all of us in our stories, we have a theme in our stories. And the theme, if we're mindful enough and we process and we reflect enough, we'll see a theme throughout our life.
Yep.
And that theme turns into our message and turns into the way that we impact other people. And so for me, it was, if you ask any of my coaches, you ask any of my teammates, what was Jones best at on the court? Vision. She was able to see the floor better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And while that was on the court, that's also like what got me to get out of and see beyond where I was at. And so I sat down and I had started hearing about, vision boards and, what is, vision boards can help you with this and all these different facts about it. And, as an athlete, like, a vision board? What you mean? You better go put that work in. You better get the gym. Talking about manifesting. Like, what you talking about, right?
Nah, for real.
Like, it's real, because we are just so like tactical and outcome driven and data driven that the idea of using energy to get our goals, like true mental, spiritual energy to attract, that's foo-foo talk in our world.
Yeah.
Right? But again, I was desperate.
Yeah.
So I went and I was like, you know what? I went to the store, I got all these magazines or whatever, and I just like shut the door, locked the door, and like for 3 hours just dared to believe in what I literally could not see. I'm talking friendships, beliefs, faith, professionalism, the whole 9 yards. I put all these images out there. I had stages up there. I had diverse like international women that were like this, right? Like all different type of stuff, like energy that I wanted to attract into my life, even though I didn't have it. But there was something about the image that pulled me into like, I want that feeling. I want that. Put it all on the board. I laminated it to give it value and I put it up on my wall. And then after I had my son, I started serving the board. What I mean by like serving the board is I started going out and volunteering on things and doing things that align with the board. So I started asking local schools, hey, can I come talk to your kids? Yeah, Morgan, you can come talk. Cool. I'd go in there, I'd put together a speech about confidence, self-belief, like whatever, right? And I'd go in there and I would speak it. and I would just watch, and I'd video it, and I'd watch it back. And I could see there was something there. Like there was something connecting in the room with those young women and with those athletes that they hadn't heard before. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is interesting. So I kept doing it. And I kept like grabbing these pieces of evidence of like, could this be something that I can really do?
Yeah.
Is this really like, could this be what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so as I kept doing that, it kept becoming more and more like tangible in terms of now I'm thinking, okay, how can I make money doing this? Now I'm thinking website, like all the stuff you see now with my brand.
Yeah.
That was 8 years ago when that first started, those seeds were planted of like what it could be. And so it was really like committing to the process. And now like my vision board, like almost 80% of the one I made 8 years ago has manifested into my reality.
Wow.
And so that's a big part of, I think, the recreation process is you have to kind of go back to the basics, which is like, what are the values that guide your life? Mm-hmm. You know, as athletes, we're guided so much by culture values, team values, that we really haven't sat back and defined our own values.
Yeah.
Because there was no space for them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's coming back and saying, what are my values? What do I care about? Because that can help you anchor your decisions on bigger decisions you're making. Then it's saying, truly, what are my goals for the next 365 days? Sometimes the athletes, we forget, like we got where we're at because we have goals. Mm-hmm. Every single day we wake up, there was one goal, right? In practice, you had goals. Everywhere you went, there were goals. Yep. Why don't we do them for ourselves?
Yep.
Get back to goals. What can you actually measure and do this year or this month or what have you? So I got back to the idea of goals. And then I moved into the mental, the spiritual, the energy world, which is saying, let's create a vision board and look at it every day because I got a subconscious back here, right? That needs some teaching. Mm-hmm. It needs some direction because it doesn't know what to do. Subconsciously, it wants to go into old behaviors. Subconsciously, it wants to default.
Yep.
So it was my job to train it, to say, no, we going this way.
Right.
We ain't gonna get there tomorrow, but that's the direction. That's what we're going after. And so time after time, that's what happens. So that's where the vision box was born. It's like that toolkit for anyone really in transition. When you think about leaving something and walking into something else, you need a vision for it. Mm-hmm. You can't just think it's gonna happen. That's relationships, that's jobs, that's new financial resources, whatever that is. It's like you gotta have your vision of like, what if this relationship didn't work? Why would I think something different is going to happen in the next relationship if I don't set the intention, the goal, and the vision around what I really want to experience?
Exactly.
You're just going to keep creating the same thing.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
so
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was really powerful. Like everything you just said, with kind of a few things that I took from that is just like having to reset, and even in your low moments, how can I make an impact on someone else? Because it's so easy to look at what you're going through and have, I don't want to say a pity party, but it's like you can get so overwhelmed with the thoughts of with the things that's going wrong. Mm-hmm. But I also did the same thing, like how I said that I didn't want to go back and do the camps for my, the schools back home. Like, even when I was going through it, I had to get over that and say, how can I make an impact on someone else's life? Mm-hmm. And I went to go speak at a school, Celebration High School here in Orlando. And I was like, man, like that felt good. It didn't feel good that I got a chance to speak in front of it. It felt good to speak life. It felt good to speak life and to make an impact on someone else's life. So over time, I would go back to my hometown and just help out with the high school team. Like, it ain't about, I don't want the news to come out. It's nothing. It's like really like, how can I make an impact on someone else's life? And now with that, I should record this. I should make content. Wait a minute. I'm discovering myself. Like I can, so like all of that, it's important. And you don't really think about these things, but a lot of the times it's so easy to get lost. It's so easy to get lost, and a lot of people don't really know how to get on track with their transition after sports. So I think it's important. Like everything you just said, like having a vision, setting, like everything was important. So
it's like in sport, I feel like, especially team sport, you are trained to look at your opponent. You're trained to look out, right? What is my opponent doing? What's the team doing? How's my teammate doing? What's my coach saying? Everything is so outside of yourself. And that's what we're trained to see, is thinking competition is outside of ourselves. And when I was able to truly flip that and go, it's not outside. It's literally within me.
yeah,
It's the person that I look at in the mirror every single day.
Yep.
That is my new competitor, right?
I hear you.
You know, and if I can work with that person, I can do anything I want.
Right.
And I think when athletes transition out, they're still thinking that their answers are outside of themselves. And really it's within themselves.
It's within themselves. And a lot of times as athletes, when we watch film or when we're in those rooms, we're critiquing ourselves a lot. We're constantly rewinding that, I should have did this better. I should have did that better. And every now and then you pat yourself on the back like, oh, that was a good rep. But more times than not, you're so used to being critical of yourself. You know?
I love that angle. And that's like the other side of that is that critical loop that plays in our head constantly. And what makes us great, but also like we gotta show more compassion for ourselves, and that voice that says you should be doing this, you gotta be doing this, you missed that, you missed this, you're not,
Yeah. No, so your situation was also, it was, what's the word I'm looking for? It was like a double effect, because not only were you transitioning outside of sports, you were becoming a mother while searching for yourself. Did you ever get caught up in your identity being so consumed with being a mother as well that it wasn't like, that it was, because you're dealing with two different things and you're trying to find yourself? Like, because a lot of people, I say when I speak to certain moms out there, that, like, they're so focused on overexerting themselves for their kids that they lose themselves. Have you ever have that ever been relating to you? Have you been through that?
No. No. I think a big part of that is because through sport and the identity narrow-mindedness I had there helped me a lot with not holding on to so much of that tension when having a child. I lead him with a lot of ease, and you know, he's not mine. I'm just his teacher. I'm his guide. And in framing it like that, it's helped me allow him to really flourish and become just like who he's going to become. You know, I think women, we can be even more critical because the world tells us that's our role. That is your role. If you don't get that right, who are you? Like, do you even deserve to exist if you don't get motherhood right? And that's a lot of pressure that we put on women. And it's really heavy to carry in this era as a modern mother of carrying your children through a world that feels very unsafe. But for me, it's, you know, my intention, right? My goal is really just to help him evolve into who he is supposed to become, not who I want him to become.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't embarrass me when he goes into the store or whatever, and you know, he's playing or whatever and stuff like that. Like I'm just here to guide him, and I think that's what mothers like. Just really being in a space where being more compassionate to yourself, treating your motherhood journey, you know, like you get to.
Not got to.
Yeah. You don't have to. You get to take this spirit, take this soul, and evolve it. Now, where we go wrong as mothers is we feel like we're there to teach them. Truly teach them. We're here to guide them. They're here to teach us. My son teaches me more about me than I can even read in a book.
That's crazy.
Literally, he's a mirror.
Wow.
Because, we are all products of our parents.
Yeah.
And so anything that you see externally with him it does come back to me, which can feel like a lot of pressure, but also I take it on as a challenge. It's like, how can I be better for myself first, which is very hard for mothers, is trying to fit themselves in first, and then saying, okay, in result of me being better for myself, my son will be better. And I've seen that in my son. We don't have anxious attachments, like he's cool. Like when I say cool, what I mean is like, we'll sit and talk. Hey, tell me how you feel. How was your day? Oh, you don't want to talk? Okay, no problem. Mommy, how was your day? Like we just have a really cool relationship because I allow him to be me. I take accountability for my part, and I could go on and on about that.
Yeah.
I love being a mom. It's fascinating, but it is very hard.
Yeah. No, I thought that was dope, and I wanted to touch on that because a lot of people, what I learned was, I used to think that nobody knows how I feel, like leaving sports and going through this transition, but the more I grew, even being an NFL player, I was like they don't know how I feel, like, if they only played high school, but that's not true. So the point I'm trying to make is, it's really the concept of forming a new identity, forming your true identity, whether you're in the military, whether you were a doctor, like whatever it is, like you can be so consumed in something, and just learning that even it's a mom out there who might be watching this and it's, I don't know what it's like to, but then if you reframe it like, dang, like, just putting it in their own shoes, I thought that was dope. So another question, do you think like the term ball is life has like an impact on that, like athletes forming that identity? Because I think it does, but at the same time, it's also a figure of speech, but like everybody don't see it as a figure of speech.
Yeah. I'm more of like I get it. I understand like what they mean by that. And I see the toxicity in it. And then I see like, okay, I get what they mean by that. Because you have to say, right? In order to become really great at something, you have got to be tunnel vision.
Got to.
Right? So there is a part of like, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe it to become really good at it. I mean, we're talking, you and I are top 10% in what we do. And that's like on the high end, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, in order to become that, we had to be tunnel vision and focused. So I get where they mean like ball is life, because literally you needed that to get there. And that's really for anyone in any space that has achieved something. You have to do it over time consistently to become really good at it. There is no cheat code to success in being really good at something. It's showing up, doing the work consistently to get the results.
Exactly.
So I get it. Ball is life, and more than an athlete, and what that means, and how to flesh that out. I think where we're at with the more than an athlete concept is, it's interesting because we will say it, right? It became a saying. So now it's like a verbal processing, like more than an athlete. And now it's like, well, what does that mean? And how do you do that? And is there really space for that? And, a lot of the different places that I go speak, I've been able to speak to athletes about what that actually looks like and how within their identity, which has led me then to be talking to coaches about how to cultivate that and create space for that with their athletes. And then even athletic directors, how to implement these things in their systems so that they don't become so tunnel vision, and they do have outlets, because the percentages still haven't changed of who's going to go on to college.
Yeah.
So I've had the privilege of speaking to those different, demographics, but what I find is like, it's even a hard concept to teach coaches, because we have the athlete identity, they have the coach identity.
Right.
That they don't know who they are outside of coaching.
Right.
So how are they going to help us or create space for us when they don't even know their identity outside of the next game or what have you?
Right. And what happens a lot of times is, if they see an athlete doing something outside of their sport, it's like, you don't love the game. You do not look like how dare you spend your off season trying to learn a new craft? But that's one of the things that I learned. Like, yes, you do have to be tunnel vision for an extended period of time. Like, I can't put a certain number on it because everybody's situation is different. Yeah. But one thing that I wish I did earlier in my career was maybe in the off season, learn more about myself. What do I truly love to do? Like, it's not like plan B, what do I want to do once football is over with? Like, you can think that way,
Yeah.
but it's just like, what can you do more? Like, how can you turn your passions, what are your passions outside of football? I wasn't thinking like that.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, off season, like we literally have 6 months off. Like I'm training, I'm working my behind off to become the best football player that I can be, but I wasn't really chasing the best version of myself personally or spiritually. And that's something that I wish that I did more of. Like, and
Do you feel like it's helping to see, because we all have role models, right? And so as our role models start to open up more of their, more than an athlete, right? Like passions and stuff, then you can see in them like, oh, they're doing it, so then I can do it.
yeah and no.
Okay.
Because sometimes you may see it as, well, they're doing it, but they're secure. Their job is secure. I'm trying to get it.
Yeah.
I don't really got time.
To be painting or, singing karaoke on a Sunday.
But it's like during the season I get it. But during the off season, find yourself.
Yeah.
Find yourself. And it doesn't mean that you don't love the game as much. It's just a matter of, like I said, like there are plenty of people, whether it's the coaches, they go golfing, or, like they may invest in real estate or whatever it is. Like everybody may have something else that they have going on, but we may be so insecure that it's like, or maybe we just don't know.
So I have a question for you. You
What's
ready
up?
for this one? What are the benefits of finding yourself?
What are the benefits of finding yourself? I think one of the most important benefits of finding yourself is it'll help you become better on the field or on the court. And when those troubling times come, you are able to process things in a way in which, okay, I'll say it like this. When I was in Carolina, or even times in Tampa, there were moments where I was like really, really stressed out. Like, and I just didn't know how to go about things, because if I didn't perform well, I wasn't well, or like if it's so many scenarios where who knows, like if I got cut, it's going to hurt that you got cut, but it's like when you know yourself, it's like you have this ability to say, you're going to grieve it, you're going to go through it, but you also have this ability to say, like, that doesn't define who I am. You will be able to walk away from things peacefully, knowing that you did everything on your end to try to accomplish your goal. And it's going to hurt still, like you're still human, but it's just this, for me, it was also finding the best version of myself spiritually. I'm still on that journey of growing spiritually. All those things help. And when you do that, when you're chasing the best version of yourself, like you find out what's not bringing productivity in your life. So you have the ability to look at, okay, here's what I'm doing, whether it's partying, whether it's devices, whatever, like no judgment, obviously. But it's like, okay, I need to cut that out. Once you cut that out, it's like, okay, now you're scheduling your days and your time around how you can become the best in your sport, the best in your business ventures. And now it's like, all I'm doing is constantly learning. I'm constantly like, it's like you spend more time studying.
Yeah.
You spend more time, you have different conversations. You see things differently. So it's like, I don't know, that's some of the things that I think are benefits of becoming the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think it's like, why are we so distracted? Like what is the spirit that we're in when everybody will tell you to become your best self, to find yourself, to, explore your passions, to be more than an athlete, all these things. And, we continue on these like these loops of self-sabotage or, you know, just distraction or confusion, right? Like those comfortable like patterns, if you will. And it's like, do you have to be broken in order to like fix it? You know?
Yeah.
And I hate that. And I think that's the part where a lot of us are like, how does that work? Can you just get it before you have to get it?
Yeah.
And when all the athletes that I work with, that's one of like the like assessments that I go through just a series of questions. They don't even know it, but it's like assessing, have they hit their bottom yet? Do they know their bottom? Because then that helps me understand where they're at and like the steps that they need to take. I like working with athletes that know their bottom because they're more inclined to do the work to get to where they want versus the ones that are still distracted and can tell me that they're doing this, but you know what they're doing. That's why you're not seeing those results. And they actually just don't want to do it. They just want to act like they're doing it, but they're not actually doing the work. And it'll eventually show up. You know what I mean? And that's the part that I think you as a leader in your space and in my space, it's like, we want them to see it, but we can't force them. Yeah.
Another thing is conforming to an identity of what we think we have to be. So like, you may feel like, shoot, I play football. It's only right that I have a whole roster of women. You know, everybody else doing it. This is just what we do.
Yeah.
It ain't even always about being a follower. It's just like, this is just who I am. You've bought into that idea of this is who you are.
Yes.
And when you are an outlier or someone who's like, nah, bro, like I don't do that. I don't, you know what I'm saying? They look at you as like, well, that's different. Some people they get it, but some people they like, oh, you tripping, bro. Like, nah, like we finna go, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that plays a huge part in it. Like, what's influencing you? You know? You know, where do your influences come from? Whether it's your peers, whether it's music, who knows? Like everybody didn't have that father figure. So I know I can speak for myself. Like there were times where just listening to the music played a huge influence on the actions that I was doing.
And
I'm not toxic, but I was being toxic.
It literally,
like,
how important, right? What you hear and what you see. We think we have like all this control over stuff, but like what goes in here is processed.
Yep.
Right? What goes through here is processed.
Yep.
So it's the music, it's the porn, it's all the, like the hookup culture we think we have to subscribe to.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why like our relationships are failing everywhere and why, you know, we're not getting the outcomes we want. And I think, you know, from what I thought was fascinating that I haven't heard an athlete talk about of just, you know, choosing like a Christian lifestyle, waiting till marriage, which you and I went to college together and we know the culture, right? And it's almost like you had to do that, whatever that was, you had to just fall into it, you know, go to the bar, take 8 tequila shots and go to the next club and bottle service and you know, it was just a lot that you feel like you have to do. And what I hear you saying is like, you don't have to, that's a choice.
It's a choice.
And it's getting them to see like that's a choice.
It's a choice. And to go kind of like reference your other question and this, what you just brought up goes hand in hand. So like me making that choice to wait till marriage is me making a choice to become the best version of myself.
Right.
So not only am I chasing the best football player, I want to know how I can be the best husband because I was making decisions where it's like my relationships weren't the best decisions, whether they were relationships or just having fun. It's like, okay, am I really chasing the best version of myself in that area?
Right.
You know, like, so that
you're like the epitome of like, it's like whoever you're around, because what you're saying right now to me is like, that is the kingdom mindset. That is a kingdom mindset.
Yeah.
And more men with kingdom mindsets, we literally have a better society and a better world. And so that is what you're doing. Chasing that is honorable, right? Like it is the path. And it's really important that for me, it's like this, who's around you is so important,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and you just have to get around people who make you think about your choices, right?
Yep.
Who aren't gonna just do everything just because that's the cool way to do it, you know what I mean? And that's hard. And even when you don't intentionally like try to engage with people who do engage in that type of activity, it's like even being around that environment and that spirit and that energy. Yeah.
Nah, it's
hard.
tough. It's tough because that's going to be the majority of the locker room, and
Yeah.
that's just the facts. It's not me
No, that's a
saying what's right, like who, like judging anybody. Because I was that person. I was that dude. So I definitely get it. But with me, it's more so now. It's like, okay, to go to what you were saying. How do I navigate the locker room now? Because now it's no longer about who can I not hang around. It's like, what conversations can't I take part in? Because I like locker room talk. It's
Yep.
locker room talk.
Yep.
So now I have to like, all right, I gotta just be quiet or like not partake in certain conversations too. So it's being intentional with everything.
Yes.
And
mindful.
being a football player that was one of the toughest things that I had to do because I'm so used to saying whatever I want to say, doing whatever I want to do. But now I have to set boundaries. Set boundaries, whether it's relationally or just even with the homies.
Yeah.
So it comes with it, and with that, everyone will get weeded out. I'll just say that.
That part.
It's not really about cutting people off because, I still love everybody. But it's just like over time, you'll grow distant. Or over time, it's like you don't really have that common interest. So, you kind of realize that I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it's also you just peep a lot of things,
Yeah.
and it comes with the process. It comes with it,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Making
that's
that space, right? It's
making that space.
Use that, you make more space for other more genuine connections.
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about. Being able to hang with people that you never thought you would hang with.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the thing. Like sometimes it's okay to be around the dudes who seem as cool, but sometimes go talk to the dude that you never thought you would hang with.
Yeah.
Like you never know. Like it's really all about being humble, honestly. Just being humble, like not having an ego and being able to look at yourself and really evaluate yourself and be honest.
Yeah.
And trying to fix the things that you may not want to fix. Like you said, you have this, what is that, subconscious in the back that wants to go this way, but you have to constantly renew your mind.
Yes.
You have to, because it's easy to revert back to your old ways. Super easy. And, it's a daily thing,
Yeah.
So with me, waiting till marriage, that's one of the best things I did, one of the best decisions I made, but not because I'm just choosing to wait till marriage. Really, it came with me pursuing my relationship with God. Like, that's one of the best decisions that I really could have made.
Yeah, because God takes the desire for it.
Exactly.
And you realize, like, I don't have a desire for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But guess what? He's going to replace those desires with other desires that is going to make an impact on the world.
So good.
Yep. So I don't know. I thought that was great. Honestly, like if there's anything else you want to talk about or any more questions, the floor is open.
That's great.
If not, then I think that's a great way to wrap it up, honestly.
Yeah.
So
For
appreciate
sure.
y'all for tuning in. Morgan Jones, Vision Box. Before you go, tell us some of the places that you mentioned talking about being a keynote speaker and stuff. Where are some of the places that you had the opportunity to talk to, colleges and stuff?
Yeah. So I've spoken at quite a few NCAA Power 5 schools. I've spoken at national conferences in different sports. I've spoken with the WNBA, the NBA, and I know I'm missing some. Those are the most ones that are on the top of my head right now. But I mean, specifically like Texas Tech, Houston, yeah, and it's awesome. It's cool to see kind of that connection of being able to bring forth the idea around, you know, self-compassion, vision, authentic leadership, connecting with care, you know, like genuineness that cultures need, that people want to be known that they matter.
Yeah.
They want to be seen. And I'm able to kind of bring that in a leadership format to people. So yeah, it's cool. I've worked with really cool companies and brands I'm proud of.
Yeah. Nah, hey, I'm proud of you. Like I said, I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. I thought it was a great conversation, and hopefully this will be able to impact a lot of people. You know, so Vision Box.
Go get your vision box.
Go get your vision box, because that's what she got going on, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, Morgan Jones.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Sorry guys, was it worth the wait?
Nah.